Hello everyone, hope you guys are doing well. Just gonna quickly change the old stream graphic first to my FPL. Whenever that loads. Seems to think that the Fantasy Premier League Google Chrome page is actually Reddit Soccer. Interesting. Very well. Let's just try something else. There we go. So for this week, I am pretty much going full on gung ho. Hope you guys are doing well, to be honest. I'm just gonna quickly read some of the comments before we just get started with discussing my team. Is Holland essential? I don't think so, but I think he just suits a wildcard 31 plan a lot. And I can also understand a lot of people going for the likes of Ederson, Bruno, Kluivert, as captaincy options, kind of ignoring Haaland if you want to do that. I'd also say, pay attention to, how much, let's say, keeping Isak does for your potential wildcards, for your keeping Salah does for your potential wildcards. I did sort of simulate different situations with, let's say, some of the 34, 36, and 33 kind of impacts, right? Potential outcomes based on the FA Cup. And I just felt like a lot of the wildcards that I had, most of them didn't have Salah. A lot of them, I would eventually sell Isak, right? Like if I, let's say, owned Isak, it was not too likely that I had a lot of drafts that kept Isak throughout the entire game. So, he's someone that eventually will get sold anyways. And so I don't really mind repurposing the cash before the wild card. As far as, let's say, someone like Holland as well, just bring him now. I think just looking at the odds for next week as well, right? Looking at some of the implied odds for Holland versus Leicester, it felt like a good opportunity to actually not have Mo Salah on the team. And, how to look at, for example, some models projections on Gaming 30 where Salah has Everton at home, but even Palmer, Tottenham at home is actually like a really good game as well. Now, I know a lot of people are down on Palmer, and that's fine, but it just comes down to what your core belief is, right? I'm not particularly influenced by, I guess, effective ownership at this stage of the season. So I'm happy to make moves like that. But if you want to maintain team value on certain players, totally fine to do so. Elanga, Gibbs White, I'd go Gibbs White most cases. And Mbeumo and Williams or Kirkis and Gibbs White, I'd probably go Mbeumo, actually. Just because I don't really value Gibbs White too much, to be fair. Forest defense is as good as any defense this week. I think actually Everton have the best clean sheet odds. As ever, right? Things like home and away are extremely significant in terms of how we kind of factor in and calculate clean sheet odds, particularly when you look at how the markets do it. Because historically, I think this season, right, is actually a 12-year low in terms of the impact of home and away. But I think as an average expectation, we're not going to change our opinion on that because a lot of the other big five European leagues haven't had significant impacts in terms of, I guess, crossover between home and away. Home and away is still a very relevant way to project how games go to a good or bad extent, right? So yeah, clean sheet odds, I believe this week that was shared by Rob T, which you can find him at Rob T FPL on X. So it just shows you the latest spread updates. It seems like Everton have the highest clean sheet odds, then followed by Arsenal. Quite a gap, I might say. Nottingham Forest, Wolves, United, all very, very close with Arsenal, and then City a little bit delayed. But to be honest, I think for the dominant teams this week, it's like if you own a defender from one of those teams and one of them happens to be extremely attacking, you'll be fine, right? Like if you own Guardiola or Kirkes, the gap really isn't something insane that needs to be bridged. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. In terms of goal scorers, though, I think the only thing that I found quite interesting is, definitely free hitting into maybe some of the Wolves goal scorers is quite interesting. I thought about Sarabia as well because he had a huge performance last week. And if you're free hitting, I think he's actually a pick that very much intrigues me. But Valentin, nice to see you on the stream. Kim Lamberts, thank you so much for being a member for 6 months. Really appreciate it as being a captain. Sebastian, hope you're well. Couldn't make it to the last couple of ones. I appreciate you coming along, Kim. Morning to you, Kearney, and thank you for tuning into FPL Script when it was late at night. Marku, I will swallow, hopefully. A green arrow. Rohits, thank you so much for the message. Hey, Fran, to get Holland, would you recommend selling Palmer or Isak? Generally speaking, I'd probably actually recommend selling Palmer, just because Palmer's game is quite bad. Although I have to imagine that one of the impacts of selling Palmer is you have one less player this week, right? Which actually has a lot of knock-on value. But I think because you can also maintain Isak cash on 31, that's actually quite nice. I'd probably at this point sell Palmer if you want to do that, because the Isak and Palmer odds are very close next week when it comes to sort of projected points. And ultimately, if you go for Holland, you're going to have a captain. So if you want to go that route, I think that's fine. Trent, Palmer, Mateta for Holland, Guardiola, Gibbs for -4. I don't really love the Gibbs White move, if I'm completely honest, but if that's what gets you Holland, I think that's fine. Especially if you're going to wildcard before, let's say you really want that Mateta value back, right? You're thinking of Palmer to Bruno, -4. I don't think it's really worth a -4 at all, unless you're super confident in Bruno captain. But I think most teams who are suggesting things like that have someone like Kluivert who they can captain instead. And I actually think Kluivert personally is maybe a better captain than Bruno this week. Would you rather go Howson or Nico Williams? I'd probably go Howson if you actually factored in next week as well, right? Because next week you can play Howson. So it really comes down to whether you have a good third defender next week and whether you'd like to play someone like Howson and you know how impactful he is for your own team from that sort of perspective. Would I start a Rico Lewis? Would I chance a Rico Lewis start today? I actually probably it's a home game, right? I probably would. Holland goal scoring odds, I think it was like 70-something%, if I'm not wrong. Dream Brother 22, thank you so much for the super chat. Free at week for you. No wildcard left, holding the effective ownership trio. The effective ownership trio being, is that still Palmer, Isak, Salah? Because I guess Palmer's effective ownership is declining. So I'm just curious what that is. Because you never know. Like, I mean, the Haaland buys could continue going, right? So I think this week Holland will actually have quite high ownership, mostly due to how people are putting the captaincy on him. But of course, the base Holland ownership is much lower than someone like Chris Wood, right? On -4 currently and have Holland, Salah, and Palmer. I think that's totally fine. You've got no... yeah, this is actually a good topic because I just think there's not... I don't really like a -4 for a goalkeeper this week because a lot of the goalkeepers that people have already are really good. Like Alisson for 30 and 31 is still relatively strong. Unless you've got a really poor goalkeeper for 30 and 31, or let's say, or just 30, right? If you're wildcarding on 31, what I would probably suggest is actually consider someone like Jose Sa potentially, right? Who's got good fixtures. But if you have someone like let's say, I mean, it's really only Alisson that I'm thinking about that most people would have as a goalkeeper that blanks this week. So yeah, I think if you have Alisson, you're fine. Would I go Valdemarson or someone else for 3.9 goalkeeper? No, I don't think it really matters. No. I wouldn't go for a goalkeeper in that situation. E7, nice to see you. Good morning from New York City. That must be pretty early in the morning, right? But thank you so much for joining the stream. Good afternoon, Derek, to you as well. It is afternoon for me too. Would you do Bowen to Fernandes? Is that Bruno? I mean, if that's Bruno and not Enzo, then yeah, I would do that, 100%. Wood versus Holland for captaincy, I would go Holland in most cases. Would I sell Palmer and Isak for Holland and Bruno? It means having Cresswell over Guardiola for the next 2 weeks. What if you could just go for a cheaper midfielder, though? Is that something that could help out? I don't really mind going Bruno for the next 2 weeks, especially if, I mean, like this week, he could really do it all. Start Timber, Mikalenko, definitely. To be honest, I'd actually start Mikalenko at this point. Quite like Palmer post international break. Yeah, I really like Palmer as well. So I've got no complaints to that because I've clearly chosen that I'd probably have... I'm going to have Palmer, Holland, Isak, right, coming out of the international break. And no Salah. I've got Henderson, who blanks but has Southampton next week on a -4. That's the thing with the goalkeeping thing, right? If you have a good goalkeeper, like let's say, I actually totally forgot about Henderson, but both Henderson and Alisson have good games coming out of the international break. So there's really no reason to sell another goalkeeper for -4, where honestly, the projected points for most goalkeepers are awful this week. And I don't really see the value in taking that -4, unless you're super confident for whatever reason on a certain team. But another thing that I'd probably mention too is a lot of the goalkeepers that you go with this week are just going to be pit up against one of your attackers. So I don't know, not too many situations where I think you're going to benefit massively, if that makes sense, for going for a different goalkeeper, that kind of thing. You've got 10 players, including Dango. Would you consider taking a hit? It really depends, right? If you can go for some of the big hitters, like, you know, the likes of Evan Nilsson, the likes of Kluivert, I'd probably take a hit. If we're talking goalkeepers now, if we're talking like defenders, I'd probably not take a hit. What's my take on Foden? I mean, I don't think he's amazing this week, right? Because the actual fixture itself is not a great City game. So my take on Foden is if you are going to wildcard 31, you're going to get the value of 30 as well. So he's quite good from that perspective. Any City news? I don't think I've seen any City news at all, unfortunately. But yeah, I think with Foden, you have to think that, unfortunately, some of the minutes are somewhat managed as well. Like if I look at Foden's recent minutes, they're not amazing. But if you're happy with, let's say, a 70-minute Foden, I think that's fine. I just think that right now you've got a lot of value within the game, within even, let's say, Bournemouth mids who compete really well against the likes of Foden. And Foden, honestly, is very expensive for what he is, considering that he's not close to a double. So that's something I would say. Like I actually find Foden a little bit more appealing if we head towards the wild card, and really think that his minutes are good, as opposed to this week where the game's kind of mediocre and you come back after the international break. And he's got the FA Cup match as well, right? Which will probably also mean a little bit of rotation coming out of that. Foden or Bruno, I'd go Bruno for sure. Would I rather start Mykolenko or Dango? I'd start Mykolenko for sure. I'd easily start Mykolenko in that case. I think Mykolenko actually is one of the best defenders this week, right? Just stand alone. So is Ait-Nouri as well. Someone asked me a question about what I would change in my free hit draft. I'd probably actually go Ait-Nouri, Guardiola, and maybe a United defender at this point, like someone like Dalot potentially. Instead of, let's say, going for Nico Williams. I kind of like that. And then in the midfield, I would generally consider Sarabia. I know that sounds like a crazy hot take, but I do think Sarabia starts this match. He played really well at the end of last game. If you kind of predict that he starts and maybe plays, let's say, 70 minutes, because I think one of the issues with Sarabia always is how long is he going to play for, right? But he could be a penalty taker at a cheap price. I think he's actually an interesting mid this week, but you still have, Arsenal mids, and Mbumo, Bournemouth mids, Bruno, and that could already take you to 5 players. So he's the only sort of outside differential I quite like. So I'll just kind of mention Sarabia there. If you think that his minutes are actually going to be even better than 70, then I think he's actually kind of a lock for that draft. But that could be quite a big punt. In terms of, like, let's say, goalkeepers, I'd probably just go with Pickford at this point, just given that they've got the highest clean sheet odds. In terms of the front line, I will always... I think it's close. In terms of, like, Beto, Wood, Evan Nilsson, I think you pick 2 out of 3 from that, just based on your risk preference. Probably Wood over Beto is fine, and then you go Evan Nilsson as well. I think maybe Holland, Wood, Evan Nilsson is, like, the best pairing possible, because I'm still not really into it, thinking that I've got, like, amazing roll minutes. So I'll probably go for those. I'd probably go through those 3, but then if you care less about risk, then you could actually just go Beto still. What in the... Oh, right, sorry. It's not a clickbait title. I just forgot to update my... I'll just change it to Salah out. So let's just change the clickbait. Milenkovic or Nico Williams. I'd probably go Nico Williams still, to be honest. Why suddenly people have Holland in their team, even though he keeps blanks? I don't know. I mean, I'm captaining Palmer, even though he keeps blanking. Noneri minutes risks. I think he definitely is a minutes risk. Avoiding Salah. I mean, the thing is, like, I don't look at outcomes and really change my mind on certain players, right? Like, if someone is overperforming a little bit and someone's underperforming, I look into the reasons why I think there might be overperformance, and I consult to models, I consult to market odds, and I make decisions on whether I think I should be selling, like, underperforming assets or overperforming assets, or going against overperforming assets. Yeah, so I don't really have any issues with the captaincies that I've gone with personally. Clearly they're higher risk decisions because I know the effective ownership is very high, but as I always say, like, Salah is the best player in the league, but it's not like people don't run him close. It's not like, when you look at, let's say, market odds, that people haven't been running him close every week when I go for a differential captain. So I think a lot of people get tied towards a lot of outcomes, and to be honest, we all want outcomes in this game, but I would say before a lot of the weeks when I make those decisions, I don't suddenly think, yeah, Salah is going to get a 15-pointer and I'm going to go against him just because I want to. I do it because I think the average expectation is maybe something like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 points. And there are other players who can compete, and I can go from a risk perspective with the ability to go against that. So that's kind of how I see things. And it's worked for me in different seasons. This clearly has been a season where it hasn't worked out, but who's to say it's going to continue working out in a certain direction? Like, I don't believe that that's how things work. Neither do I think there are lessons learned. What do you think about using Assistant Manager? And thank you so much, Hamza, for the super chat. What do you think about using Assistant Manager down the line on Wildcard 31, Bench Boost 32, 33, 3 34, instead of forcing Wildcard 30, AM 31? So you're basically saying using Assistant Manager around 36, correct? I think that's totally fine, because you could, I think there's still a decent chance that it's a double game in 36, and you might have, I think that's fine. Like, if you think that it's cleaner to manage the kind of path with, let's say, a bench boost and a wild card, and you prefer the setup of that, then, and you prefer the information of wildcard 31, I think that's totally fine as well. The only reason why I'd mentioned that wildcard 30 AM 31 is quite appealing is because I don't see any other double doubles for the rest of the season. So there's that sort of value impact. And then I think it's also a question of how you consider the strength of the bench boost, right? Like, if you prioritize having a nicer bench boost, that's fine. If you prioritize having a good AM, that's also fine. I would say, when we look at expectations, like, Assistant Manager chips are much stronger than prospective bench boosts, right? A lot of bench boosts are probably going to be 15 to 20 points. You're talking about an Assistant Manager chip that has really a ceiling of, like, I don't know, 20 points per week. So it's quite a different world, and it comes down to your valuation of the chips. But I think the way you suggested it, if we do have a 36 double, then actually Assistant Manager 36 or 35 isn't going to be so bad. Edward, sorry if you've answered already. Palmer to Bruno -4. I don't really like it, to be honest. If you want to captain Bruno, I can somewhat back the logic. But if you're not going to captain Bruno, then I think that doesn't matter. So it comes down to whether you captain Bruno. Trent, Sobo, Mateta to Aino, Fran, Bruno, and Wood for a -8. Yeah, I think actually selling Trent and Sobo makes a lot of sense. But for a -8, I guess the reality is you just don't have other players to play, right? So I think that's okay. Who's better out of Semenyo and Gibbs White? I mean, personally, I think Semenyo is better than Gibbs White, but I can see a lot of people looking at the fixtures and also looking at Semenyo's recent blanks and basically saying that they want to go with Gibbs White. But I'm curious, actually, because people are so tied emotionally towards points outcomes. I'm sure Semenyo, yeah, he's already behind Gibbs White, right? By how much? Okay, by 3 points. So really, there's nothing in it if we want to talk about outcomes. But yeah, I mean, I would pick Semenyo in most cases, personally. I just think that the game coming out of this in 30 is much better for Semenyo anyways. And it's more likely that, given that the minutes we've seen this season for Semenyo, even with fixture congestion, that Semenyo's going to be okay for 30. Why not Bowen? I mean, he's off pens now, right? With Paqueta back in the team. I don't think Bowen... This has been a pretty bad season for Bowen's underlying stats as well. So he's a pretty inferior asset, I would say. And the fixtures just aren't quite there. So yeah, I mean, like, if you look at Bowen, I mean, he's obviously on this list, but he's not a standout player. I think part of the benefit of Bowen is how fit he is as well, how many minutes he plays, which when you compare it to the rest of the field, like, even though Bowen had, like 4 or 5 weeks of injury, he's pretty much racked up a lot of 90s. Like, someone like Gibbs White doesn't play full 90s every single match, right? There's cases where he just gets subbed earlier, and that even Semenyo, I think, has had a few knocks this season, but he's also kind of like a mini Bowen in a sense, where he just plays close to every match if at all possible. But yeah, because Bowen's fixtures aren't particularly good, I just don't think he's an amazing pick. Ultimately, he's got what, Everton away, which as I said already, has the highest clean sheet odds when you look at that. Why no free hit? I don't think I have a bad enough team to consider free hitting, like, whatsoever. You're gonna have, I mean, potentially, I think there's more of a chance that we actually get a larger blank gaming 34 as well. Or that I free at 33. I just think option 1 allows more wildcard info at 31. I agree, Hamza. So yeah, if you want to back that, then go for it. Any leaks? I can't see any leaks right now. Yeah, I think, if I'm honest, I think we're really only looking at City, I suppose, right? City's probably the team where we're looking for leaks. I haven't seen any leaks on City. I also don't think the likes of Guardiola or Holland are in danger whatsoever. So it's really a question of players like Foden and Savio, I suppose. Team Bruno or Holland this game for captain. Even if I had Bruno on my team, I'd go Holland. Read somewhere stats of Hudson-Odoi is better than Elanga Gibbs-White. I don't think that's true. His underlying stats are worse than both of those players, but he's scored, what, Hudson-Odoi has scored like 5 or 6 goals this season. Yeah, I think Gibbs-White is still the standout pick because of the combination of minutes and just underlyings. This would, though, Elanga is, I guess, the best when it comes to underlyings, but part of that is because he's quite assist dominant, like in terms of XAG. Plays less minutes than Gibbs-White, though, so that's why I'd say Gibbs-White still reigns supreme. Yeah, Hudson-Odoi has actually just matched Gibbs-White in goals. They both have 5, Elanga has 3, and then Elanga and Gibbs-White are far, far clear on assists, which makes sense based on the data as well. Also, like, a little bit of set-piece impact, too, right? Is Evan Nilsson better than Beto? I think he is. Especially if you factor in Gaming 30 as well. Thoughts on Musiala captain? I think it's the worst captaincy ever. Anyone who's done it probably isn't a serious manager. I've got bad options for my third defender. Do I use Rico Lewis or Burgess? I think you can probably run the risk of playing Rico Lewis. Not sure about Burgess. With Gabriel and Guardiola. Yeah, I think just play one of them, right? I'd probably play Rico Lewis. Captain Wood or Kluivert, but we might also get leaks, so stay tuned to that as well. Captain Wood or Kluivert, thank you so much for the 3rd super chat, Janongo. I'd probably go Kluivert personally. I think that Kluivert's minutes have gotten to a point where they're really good. When I look at the market odds as well, Kluivert's goal scoring percentages, I think, are actually higher, if I'm not wrong, or very, very close to Wood, at least. And obviously, once you factor in that kind of midfielder tax impact, or rather forward tax impact, then I think Kluivert's actually probably the better pick, right? In terms of FPL goal points, when you kind of project the 5 and 4 points respectively. What are the pros of keeping Palmer? Well, ultimately, I think most people selling Palmer are going to kind of reduce the amount of players that they have this week, right? So it's kind of like one less player this week, and then actually Palmer versus Tottenham away is actually, or Tottenham at home, sorry, is a really good fixture. So that's really the pro. You're not bringing in Haaland? I think that's fine. What do you think of Foden? I still think his minutes aren't great, and I think this match specifically this week isn't great as well. So I would look towards Foden more so as a buy for, let's say, double gaming 33 than, unless they're really confident, let's say, that Foden's going to explode like in gaming 30. Like that's I think the consideration for Foden is more so that. Why do I sell Salah over Palmer? Once again, just to have 11 players. Don't know if you answered this, but I got a phone call. Salah and Wood to Holland and Kluivert, a good idea for -4. I don't mind it as a -4. I suppose I don't love what Wood to Holland as a move, I guess. I feel like you could probably just go Salah to Bruno or something like that. Or Salah to Kluivert just standalone is okay. Because I do think that some of the captains this week, like let's say Bruno or Kluivert, do run Holland very close anyways. And if you can, then again, I'm asking you to sell Salah. So, I don't love Wood to Holland, if I'm honest. But there's some net gains there. And I guess if you've got 10 players, I don't really mind the hit at that point. Bruno Holland captaincy? I'd probably go Holland. But actually, let's just do a poll on captaincy. I do really like Kluivert captaincy, though. I'd probably go there. You've got bad options for your third defender. I'll just use Rico Lewis. Hey, Yalo, hope you're doing well. Matoma, good choice. I mean, it's not a great week this week, but Aston Villa at home next is quite nice. So, yeah, I think it's a solid choice. Would I rather start Mykolenko Dango? I mean, Mykolenko for sure. I don't think it's even particularly close. I'd go Mykolenko in most cases. Kluivert or Wood captain. Add Wood to the poll. I mean, he's other, right? I'm actually surprised Wood is that popular of a captain. Could I please grab your question? Sorry, did you send a super chat? Or did I make a mistake? Also, Ponchan, I did miss that out, but nice to see you around as well. Pedro minutes risk or Nwaneri minutes risk? I think Pedro's minutes are much better than Nwaneri's anyways. I mean, Pedro hasn't played a game for a week, right? I can't really see why he's suddenly a minutes risk. Whereas even Nwaneri being rested, he's not guaranteed like a 90 or something like that. Does that make sense? I think part of it too is that Nwaneri unfortunately has not played, like he's not really been managing the schedule very well. So I think that was a very, very much forced rest for him. I don't think suddenly it's he's going back to dropping a 90 this week, but he's very likely to start. If I had to prioritize a striker for next 2 weeks out of Wood and Holland, who would it be? Holland for sure. What do you think of Wood to Isak, Gordon to Semenyo? Is that... I'm kind of confused though. Why are we... What do we mean by that? Wood to Isak, or are we saying Isak to Wood? I'm kind of lost. Am I aiming to finish the season? I mean, I'd still say top 10k. Let's just see how it goes. Sorry, I meant Watkins to Wood. Yeah, I think Watkins to Wood is a lot stronger. Gordon to Semenyo is quite strong. Presumably, you already have Kluivert, so yeah, strong moves. Would I take a -4 for Timber to Ait Nuri? No, I think that's stupid. Generally. What do you think about Savio as a punt for my free hit? Mostly because Timber's actually going to be really good coming out of the international break as well, right? Like Timber's just a really strong pick. I probably underestimated how good Timber was. And honestly, watching him play every week, I just think, yeah, I made a mistake in terms of the cheat sheet, in terms of evaluating Timber's minutes. Midfield option under 6.7. I mean, obviously, I don't know how much is Kluivert nowadays. I guess it's always Kluivert first, and then probably another Bournemouth mid still, like Semenyo. Hey, Anish, thank you so much for the message. Member for 16 months. Hey, Fran, goalkeeper, Pickford, defense, Milenkovic, Kirkus, Timber, nice. Midfield, Nkunku, Bruno, Mbumo, Kluivert. Forward, Beto, Wood, Holland. Yeah, that's a really strong team. I mean, best of luck to you as well. That's a 3-4-3, right? Yeah, that's a really strong team. Kind of jealous of Wood this week, but hopefully Joao Pedro can do some stuff. E7, thank you so much for the message. Trent, Palmer, Rogers, Cunha out. Williams, Alanga, Semenyo, Holland in. Or Trent, Isak, Cunha out for Aguado, Beto, Holland. I quite like the Aguado move set. It kind of protects a few of your free transfers. I feel like also bringing in Williams and Elanga isn't beautiful, particularly for 30. I know Beto is probably not going to help you out on 30. So I guess the question that I'd probably ask is, if you bring in Beto, do you have to play him on 30? And if not, then I think actually I much prefer the second line of moves. And I'd rather keep free transfers as much as possible. Strategy video coming soon. Yeah, I'll probably look at that. One of the issues with strategy, if I'm being completely honest, is that the FA Cup outcomes itself will completely change strategy. So I can kind of make a video that sort of preludes what I think to FA Cup outcomes, but then there's such a short turnaround between the FA Cup games and game week 30 that I'm not sure if like I'll have a chance to update on that video. I could do a live stream definitely actually after the FA Cup games are done, and hopefully that will kind of service for people. It's Beto or Rodgers. What is that? Rodgers versus Brighton away. Yeah, I guess Rodgers versus Brighton away isn't the worst thing in the world, so that's quite nice. I'd probably still back that move. Since Elanga isn't amazing either way coming out of the week. Son to Sarabia, Isak to Holland. I don't know about Son to Sarabia personally. Because I'm not sure if Sarabia's like... I wouldn't say he's nailed right now, but he's just got a good chance of starting given the good performance last week, right? So there's small things there. Any leaks for the Man City lineup? I can't see any leaks so far. I think Tony is probably going to drop leaks today, but obviously I've got no access to them. So we'll just have to see, if I'm honest. See if, like, let's say Main Road will come out with some leaks. Like last week, I believe we got leaks from Main Road. I think Lazy FPL might have tweeted as well. Anish, I would probably still go for Holland as a captaincy. Am I wildcard in Gaming 31? Yeah, that's a plan. Nico Williams or Kirkes before the wildcard? I'd go Nico Williams. Sorry, no, I'd actually go Kirkes because of Ipswich at home and also because he's rested for the FA Cup. Is Semenyo to Kluivert for a -4 viable? I don't think it's worth a -4 because Semenyo's going to play. If it was Dango to Kluivert for -4 and you asked me that question, I probably would have actually supported going Kluivert. Luis, who would you bench out of Dango, Robinson, Mikolenko? Probably Dango. Cunha, Trent, and Palmer to Holland, Nico Williams, and Gibbs White. Yeah, I think that's pretty strong as a set of moves. After hat-trick captaining Bruno over Holland, thoughts? Well, I'm not super influenced by previous outcomes, right? So I'd still go Holland. Market's very much still back Holland. So yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. Tony's actually tweeted, which players are you most interested in for kickoff? So I'm sure he'll come out with some leaks today. We'll have to see what that's like. I mean, what players are you guys interested in finding out? Foden, I guess. I mean, who else is doubtful? Like Ederson, I suppose, potentially. The ones that are starting. Yeah, that's a good one, Ponjan. What do you think of... Like, just give us the lineup, right? What do you think of Watkins to Wood to Gordon to Semenyo, Isak to Holland? For a -8, Yala, I'm going to be honest. Have you considered Wildcard 29? I'm being serious. Some people here are suggesting -8, -12, right? If you are on that territory, I would generally suggest considering a wildcard, or if you really must, I guess free hitting as well. But I really just think that, yeah, I think wildcard's actually an interesting option for people in that camp. Because you can kind of protect yourself with having players who will definitely play on 32, setting yourself up for a bench boost on 32, and then kind of divulging your strategy based on FA Cup results. Which forest midfielder would I pick? I'd still go Morgan Gibbs White. Start Dango over defender. Honestly, I would play the defender most cases because I think a lot of people like to think that super subs exist. But conceptually, honestly, if you're playing 15 to 20 minutes of football, your chances of doing well are actually quite low. It's just that people have fond memories of super subs. So yeah, I would actually go with the defender, even Colwell to this extent. No Man City leaks so far, but we've had basically rumors of a leak. So yeah, I think FPL 20 might bless us on the timeline today. Who knows? Is Cho underrated compared to Langa? What do you mean by underrated? I mean, he's technically scored more goals this season, so I suppose he's not underrated, but his underlying stats are worse. But he's probably a more positive finisher. And I think Cho's also more informed, so you can go Hudson-Odoi. They're close. Never thought I'd bring Holland as a differential one day. Well, that's the thing too, right? The amount of people keeping Salah, that's fine. But actually, it probably means that once again, Holland's going to be differential next week because more people are going to be inclined to Salah captain. And I'll be the idiot going for Holland captaincy once again. I'm going to end the captaincy poll. But that's not a crazy high poll, right? So that probably implies a lot of people are doing things like, you know, not going for Holland, going for Kluivert, going for Wood, going for Bruno as captaincy options instead. But I think most people bringing in Holland are going to captain him. Anish, unfortunately for Spurs players, I don't love them. There might be a chance we could get a Spurs double. If I'm not wrong, I think we could get a potential Spurs double on 36. So the only time I would ever recommend bringing in a Spurs player is basically after game week 34, where, you know, if we get news that Spurs will have a double game week 36, then that's when you start bringing in those Spurs players. But for now, I just don't think there's too much value to a Spurs player, unless let's say you're doing something cute, like if you're doing wildcard 32 and you're dead ending into a Spurs player, like let's say Solanke or Son, and you want to captain one of those players on that week in game week 31, that could make sense. But for now, yeah, I'd probably say it's unlikely that that's the case. Bye Salah. Guardiola, my beloved. Yeah, George, I need Guardiola to save my season. Basically, is the gist of it. I don't know whether Marmoush is starting, if I'm honest, guys. I haven't seen leaks. I think I will say with my own thoughts on Man City that I think it's likely that Marmoush plays, but we also know that there's going to be some structures where, let's say, if Silva plays interior and they play two wingers, that honestly, there's not many minutes between Marmoush, Foden, and KDB. They kind of have to be fighting each other for minutes. So the minutes will just not be great in general. I do think Marmoush will start, but I that's not a leak. That's just my thoughts. Is Rico Lewis starting? I think so. It's really him or Nunez, right? And from what I've heard, both Savio and Nunez had a pretty bad match last time out. I don't know whether that necessarily means that Savio's gone. Sorry, I was just kind of reading some messages from a group chat, but there is no news, unfortunately. Trying to just read into Tony, but nothing's come out. Thank you, Chisel Planet. Moderator coming clutch. Latest leak is that Munetsi will dominate the points today. Fair play. Is that technically moderation abuse? Thoughts on Wood captaincy over Kluivert? I don't mind it, personally. I really like Kluivert, though. Start Phase or Dango. I do think Leicester, excuse me, are so bad that I'd probably actually go Dango. That's one of the instances where I'd suggest that. The best kind of moderation abuse. Yeah, Munetsi propaganda. I'm sure that will move the needle. How cheap is, like, let's say, is he like the cheapest potential sort of midfielder that plays this week? I'm just trying to think. I guess you've got Sarabia there as an option. Is he even a midfielder? He is a midfielder, right? Yeah. I'd probably actually go Sarabia, I would say, if I was to pick a Wolves midfielder right now. Noneri, yeah. Noneri is true. I just think Noneri's minutes are likely to be poor, even if he starts. Have Pickford and Dubravka any change for game week 30/31? No. I think, I mean, it's unlikely, let's say, Nick Pope is going to lose his spot, but you're good at wildcard as well, probably, right? So I can't imagine that Pickford is like an immensely bad goalkeeper that you need to get rid of or something like that. By Bowen or Bruno, I'd probably go Bruno. Bowen enables assistant manager. What does that really mean, though, in terms of enables assistant manager? I think you're most likely to wildcard into the assistant manager, so I really don't think it matters. I would just go Bruno in that perspective. Will Foden start? I'm generally unsure. I think, as I said, Foden, KDB, Marmoush minutes are all quite precarious. I wouldn't go for any of those players, honestly, without a leak. What do you think of one Dango, JP De Bruno captain, Wood, okay, and Wood, or two Palmer, JP, Elanga, Holland? I kind of like the Bruno Wood moves, if I'm honest. Savio, Pun, once again, someone who's maybe a little precarious. Doku's an interesting one because I think his minutes look good so far, but honestly, he's just not a very productive player when it comes to underlying stats. Like, my God, I don't know if you guys have seen his underlying stats this season, but like, he's very creative. Well, not very. I think that's a bit of a wax lyrical there, but he literally has 0.08 XG per game. That's per 90. Sorry, that's awful. That's actually awful, and I'm sure he'll score now, but he seems dangerous on the eye test, but that's because he's one of the best dribblers in the world, right? Like, he's basically, like, in terms of like take-ons, in terms of like advancing into the box, like, he's probably, honestly, I think he might be the best player in the world, right? When it comes to things like that. And Savio and Yamal are close, right? In terms of elite dribblers who kind of possess a lot of threat. But yeah, I just think Doku, when it comes to translating into goals and assists, isn't exactly him. if you don't have Haaland, should I captain Marmoush instead or go with Kluivert or Wood? I definitely wouldn't captain Marmoush. I'd definitely go with Kluivert or Wood. I think that I would say that with 100% certainty. And even if Marmoush gets a hat trick and I'm an idiot, like I'm still going to stand by that. His minutes just look a bit precarious as of late as well. And it's not like he's got tools like, 90 minutes or penalties. Jovan Jokic, would you say it's okay to have 9 playing players this week, or do I need to take a free hit slash? I have generally suggested that if you need to take a -12 or -8, you generally should be considering a wildcard 29. I really think, I haven't made videos on it. I think Andy is someone who's kind of promoted the concept. I kind of understand it for the season, especially if you've been able to roll transfers. But I think one of the issues too is if you haven't been able to roll transfers and you're wildcarding on 29, I think that is a soft impact as well that makes the wildcard worse. I do think when you're approaching that sort of territory, you could just lay down the guns and sort of just suck it up on this bad week, especially if let's say your season's been going well so far. Elliot, I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer your question if you're going to spam it in chat. But yeah, I think that's the kind of territory where I probably wouldn't consider -12. I'd consider chips to my availability. Yala says, would it be okay to take a look at Discord and see if your team needs a wildcard? Yeah, for sure. Is that your team as it stands now? It definitely doesn't need a wildcard. I'd probably do a Trent move. But then again, yeah, I with that sort of team, I would actually just go Isak to Evan Nilsson or something like that. Like that interests me. Because if you go Isak to Evan Nilsson, you can probably do something like, let's say, Wisa to Isak next week, and actually you'd still have a very, very strong team, right? And then you'd still have Salah. I actually quite like that. Oh, sorry, you are tripled up in Bournemouth. That's a good point. And then I think Beto doesn't really help the cause with 30, so that's a bit of a problem. I think a goalkeeper move isn't really worth a -4, and we're only going to treat it as your sort of -4. I guess I don't really mind. I mean, you could just consider selling Salah if you wanted to, like myself, but you actually have a lot more depth than I do. So maybe you actually kind of suck it up and play some sort of 4-4-2. I feel like you could maybe just, let's say, play, like, replace Trent potentially for a -4, and it's not going to be the worst thing in the world. I think that's okay. You probably don't need a wild card. Go on, Fran, start Holland Munoz. I don't know, I've never been that fond of bench wankery. Like, I just don't care. I just want points, and I want points, and I want my live rank to be good, and unfortunately, it's just not happened this season, has it? Maybe I do need to bench wank. No leaks yet, that's true. Would I prefer João Pedro out instead of Isak? No, I mean, I considered it many, many times. Like, the problem with João Pedro out instead of Isak is ultimately, I feel like João Pedro is back to being that talisman of the team. And if I really think that João Pedro is going to play 80 to 90 minutes a game, which I generally think is the case now, or at least like 75 plus, then I don't think it's a good move to actually sell João Pedro over Isak. Suddenly, that takes, like, if let's say we went back to my team last week, right? My beautiful 46-point accumulating team. Trent doesn't play, Alisson doesn't play. I've got players like Isak, Hall, Dango, who's pretty irrelevant, Salah, who doesn't play. Like, in theory, I had what? Palmer, Trossard, and Bumo, 3 midfielders, right? I had 2 forwards. So I've got 5 players that I can field. I want 2 attackers, and I've got only 2 defenders that can play. So in my situation, if I sold João Pedro, for example, I'd literally have to take a -4 just to field like a competent team of 11. Or I play 10 people, such as, just playing with 2 defenders or something like that, which I think is plausible. But if I really thought João Pedro was going to play good minutes this week, I mean, his projected points are probably going to be somewhere between 4 to 4 points, around 4 points. And that's worth the whole player. That's worth the hit. But I'm not going to do that. So it's like, it feels even worse. Which is why I ultimately decided on selling Isak. Because I think it kind of leaves myself with a better position for 30 anyways. If, let's say, João Pedro comes back for 30, then all I really need to do is Beto to Isak. Worst case, if there's something wrong with Isak, like over international break, I can always go Dango to Eze. So I've got options. But prospectively, even next week, I would have Gabriel, Munoz, and Guardiola. So Guardiola versus Leicester at home, Munoz versus Southampton away, Gabriel versus, honestly, can't even remember who Arsenal are playing right now, but yeah, Fulham at home. So that's a strong team still. And I've got Alisson versus Everton at home. So that's kind of why I decided to go with these kind of more, I suppose, risk-seeking moves, but at the same time, I think from a kind of points expectation, very strong. Let's answer some questions in chat. Still no Marmoush news. Free hit active. My free hit's not active. Who would I replace Trent with? I'd probably go Guardiola because it's going to have a positive impact on your Game Week 30 team. You'll probably take a free hit having a good season but struggling this week. Yeah, I can understand that, right? Especially like if you're in an ordinarily poorly set, which I think unfortunately you are in this case, then free hitting isn't bad. Wildcarding isn't bad either. You really think -8s should be wildcarding even with it comes down to this season how much value you're going to get from each chip. And I think with the way that the fixtures are spaced out and spread, I think it's unlikely that you're going to get that much value. I generally kind of like wildcarding over free hitting because you can wildcard your team to set it up nicely for 30, 31, and 32. You might be a little bit more in the mud for 33 and 34, depending on, let's say, where the doubles fall, how you're sort of planning out your free hit and optimizing around that. But yeah, I think if you're close to -8, -12 territory, it's a decent wildcard consideration. Because the wildcard would support the 30 team. For example, a lot of people making moves this week, right? They're making a lot of moves in terms of like the midfield positions, the attacking positions, and not many people are making defensive moves. And with Trent being out for Game Week 30, a lot of people's defenses on Game Week 30 are much worse. So when I look at some of the teams that I've seen, right, like I own Hall, for example. I can't even move on Hall because he's just, not going to play. But someone like Munoz is going to come back to my team, and that's nice. Castagna is pretty useless to me. I think Everton don't have a great game, right? Because they're against Liverpool. So you see, like, a lot of the players that are your third or fourth defenders for this week just aren't going to be good next week either. So having a wild card smooths over the cracks in terms of 30. Definitely smooths over the cracks over 31, excuse me. And it's an interesting consideration. Dream Brother, though, I think in terms of your specific moves, I actually don't mind that -8. Like, if you want to take that -8, you're bringing good players. Son out is a weird one. I'd have to be honest. I feel like Son to Bruno is probably one that you could ignore, but I wonder if it's because you need that to afford the moves that you're trying to make. If that's the case, then I would much rather take a -4 if you could and just ignore Son to Bruno. But if you have to go Son to Bruno to kind of afford the team, then I don't mind that as well. It's just about Majed, you chickened out and went Samuel Holland instead of Bruno Evanilson. Is that really chickening out though? Any city leaks? News just dropped. Marmoush starts. Marmoush starts. Yeah. Hey, that means I was right with my prediction. The city leagues Marmoush starts, which is good for me because in some other fantasy betting games, I do own Marmoush. Not that I'm promoting betting, by the way. Don't do it. I might just take a free hit though and assess next week. I kind of get that. Son or Foden? What do you mean? I don't know whether Foden's going to start. Son's probably going to start, but he did play a lot of minutes. Welcome Marmoush on the free hit. Good point. Is he that good though on the free hit? I have to be pessimistic again. I just think like Evan Nilsson's going to play more minutes. This match isn't particularly good for Man City. If Marmoush was even going to play 80 minutes, I actually still think he's worse. I think he's worse than Beto. I think he's worse than Evan Nilsson. I think he's worse than Wood. Genuinely. It's just the money? Okay. Hey, Fran, you've got Noneri and Dango with 0.3 in the bank. Take a hit to replace one. But who are you going to replace them with? I feel like you can't really afford a lot of key players, right? So actually, I feel like in that case, you might have to just suck it up. But will Marmoush play against Leicester, which is a better fixture? Well, no, that's what I'm trying to say. Marmoush on the free hit isn't great. And the free hit doesn't care about Leicester, right? Hope all is well with you as well, Philip. Whom to start? Housen or Nwaneri? I'd probably start with the defender. Imagine a world where we hear Holland isn't starting. If Holland's not starting, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to like slam the wildcard button and, you know, consider moving to, I don't know, I'm probably going to move to Argentina and just be a lumberjack, you know? I mean, I've always got time to quit this game. Personally, I think that's one of the best finales possible. Marmoush starts, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a pinned message on the channel. Hey, Fran, hope you're well. Any chance you could check Discord quick? Yeah, I probably could. Can't really see the message if I haven't responded to it, Jones. But yeah, in terms of leaks, we just have Marmoush starting. Can't wait for your Greaves corner goal. I mean, if people get away with these defenses once again, I'm actually going to get upset. But you know what? I've been upset every week, and yeah, I'm washed now, as they say. Hey, Fran, which two midfielders do I recommend? What do you mean, like free hit, best midfielders? What kind of situation? Anonis, I unfortunately just think that you're in a bit of a tough spot in terms of replacing defenders. Like, I feel like you actually have to make moves outside of Dango and Nwaneri to actually afford you midfielders who are any good for this week, right? So, yeah. Unless you want to consider someone like Sarabia, who's like the only player in your price point, who I think is interesting. But I think, why not just wheel out Nwaneri and Dango at that point? How many percentage? I think Foden starting probably drops to like 50%, because I think it really just depends on tactical formation, right? You can play two wingers and suddenly I think Foden's benched potentially, or you could actually just play Foden a little bit wide. Apparently the markets have gone a little bit cold in terms of City goal expectations this week. Anish, wildcard in gaming 30, not a good step. Too many cons. Not at all. There's a chance that we actually get all the information that we want from wildcard 30, right? It's just that based on when they've actually dropped information. So like, let's actually look at the fixture schedule right now. So game week 30 happens on Tuesday, 1st of April. The only issue is that the Premier League could very well give us information basically at the end of this week, which would be on the 4th of April, you know, before game week 31. Because they've actually done a lot of Friday kind of announcements in terms of fixtures. And we know that the FA Cup games happen right before game week 30. They might sit on the news, and actually by Tuesday deadline, we might not actually have the news that we want for game week like 33, 34, etc. So yeah, it's very hard to kind of call on things like that. I would just say that if you plan loosely to wildcard on 31, you're never going to put yourself in a bad spot for wildcard 30 if you have to emergency wildcard 30. The only leaks that we've gotten so far is that Marmoush is starting. Guys, I think we have some news. I think Ederson apparently is not in the Brazilian national team squad, so Ortega could start. I don't think Holland is benched, guys. Big leak, Salah not starting. All right, let's just change the pin message on this channel quickly. That's news to me. I got lucky as well. Sold Salah just before he didn't start. I'm gonna be honest though. If Holland is out, guys, I'm gonna have to plan a wild card. Like, I'm not even joking. What the hell? Okay. Let's just plan a wild card. I can't believe chat's making me do this. There's no way Holland is out, right? Don't do this to me. I'm not in the mood. Reckon both Foden and KDB might start. I don't think that's possible. I think if Maru starts, Foden or KDB have to be benched unless suddenly Bernardo Silva's not playing as well. I think Ederson might not start, by the way. I'm trying to think what my wild card would be. Like what Isak, Evan Nelson would, something like that. All right, let's just Why is this happening, guys? Focal says Holland starts. Okay, cool. I seem flustered. I'm just trying to think what a prospective Holland draft would be. Are we sure Focal said that? No, Focal hasn't said anything. Like on his stream? Is that what you're saying? On his stream. Focal hasn't said that. Great. Good news, guys. Let's plan a draft. I think I'd need to plan for bench boost 32, right? Yeah, I think Guardiola must be there. I think Trippier is probably going to be there. Munoz is... Well, actually, if Trippier and Munoz are there, he's just one defender now. So probably going to go Nuri. I think I keep Palmer. I can't believe this, but I actually think I can't afford it now. I'd literally not... Someone just tell me Haaland starts. Put me out of my misery. This can't be right, though. I mean, I probably have to go Semenyo. The problem is, who's my fifth mid? Like Minte or something like that? I'd have to go Salah, I think, unfortunately. And I've already lost all my money on him. Very nice. Same with Isak. Ooh. See, that's a pretty tasty draft, I think. Am I crazy? That's a good draft, I think. See, this is the wild card that I would go for. I think if you were going to pressure me. But actually, this is 10 players, right? Is that the problem? Yeah, it's 10 players. Oh God. I can't go a 4-4-2 though. Maybe I just don't have Isak, right? Yeah, I just go Wood, I think, in this situation. And then I just make a transfer to Isak. probably what I would do on a wild card. Something like that. But I could probably spend more money now. Although, no, I can't because I just need to go. I need to buy back Isak. Yeah, I'd probably just go for that on a wild card. And then I have 1, 2, 3 on the bench. Yeah, it's probably what I would do. Probably what I would do. The alternative is I like go for, I don't know, what, like another Arsenal defender? Am I wildcarding? No, I'm not. This is only if Holland doesn't start. So let's just live life on the completely normal world where Holland does start, right? And let's just sit on this for a moment. This is my Holland starts. Everything is okay draft, which is basically just my team with 3 transfers. No, I'm not creating news, but just creating a, non-Haaland draft just in case some crazy news comes in. Wouldn't that be crazy though, honestly, if Haaland didn't start? I think I'd have to cry a little bit. Maybe I'd have to go Marmoush on the draft though, as well. To be fair, because he's probably on penalties at that point. Let's see if Lazy FPL comes clutcher than that. Apparently Focal asked Lazy FPL directly about Holland and was told he starts. Okay, fine. If no Holland, you got Bruno. Marmoush a good punt for the next 2 weeks. I think is a decent punt, yeah. But honestly, I really like Ederson. I feel like Ederson's maybe a bit more protected as well. Holland and Marmoush start. No, I'm not saying that Holland and Marmoush can't start together. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying just in case. Like there's some crazy news like that. I reckon Foden's probably benched at this point, more so than Holland, but we'll see. Is Bruno worth a -4? I don't think so unless you're going to captain him. Should I take a hit to sell Dango for Semenyo? Probably. Yeah, I would actually recommend it. Holland worse captain now that Marmoush starts. Change it to Wood. I don't think so. Why, do you think Marmoush makes Holland worse as a player? Or what's the point there? Marmoush in to keep Salah, or do I get rid of Salah to get Holland? I actually think it's up to you. I don't really like Marmoush in as a move. I prefer Ederson anyways. And I think I could answer the same question. Like it really just comes down to your want. Like it depends on whether you want to do something like Salah captain on 30 over, let's say, Holland and things like that. Marmoush takes chances away from Holland. Holland less likely to score. I don't even know if that's true. I mean, people do, we don't think that happens with Foden. Start Colwell or O'Shea? Probably Colwell. Who would be a better captain option than Kluivert? Bruno, I suppose. But I actually think Kluivert's the second best captain this week. Marmoush wins pens. Haaland scores pens. Yeah. Sounds like goal creation for me. Who to get for the next 2 game weeks? Foden doesn't stay behind Haaland, though. He kind of just drifts from the right. Marmoush does run in behind, that's true. But it doesn't necessarily mean that Haaland stops running as well. I just don't think there's any evidence to that. I mean, people were saying for a long time too, like Doku impeded Haaland. Yeah, but running in behind doesn't take away chances from people. I'm not really sure what the point of that is. Like, I've watched City as well. There have been plenty of games in history where Foden has played and Haaland has done absolutely nothing. But I don't think you come out of that game thinking Foden steals chances from Haaland. You just think Haaland didn't get chances, right? I don't know why the narrative suddenly, when Marmoush starts, is that Haaland is going to get less chances. Marmoush didn't start last week and Haaland didn't have any chances. That's all I'm trying to say. Good luck with the captaincy this week. Yeah, it's been rough lately. I mean, I can't imagine it can go too badly this week because a lot of people are moving towards the Holland captain. But I'm just gonna hope that the stronger squad like gives me some additional points, right, compared to the field, and then hopefully that can take me on to a nice Leicester captaincy. 2 attackers for next 2 game weeks. What does that mean? Sorry, Abhishek. If City were in sync, the wingers running in behind, being good at billing the ball would be a good thing for Holland. Yeah, pretty much. Like I like Lewandowski is literally, I think, at his absolute worst right now, and he literally has insane XG per 90 because he's got world class creators like Rafinha, Pedri, Yamal, all cooking things up for him. I'm not free hitting Arthur. I'm actually just going for a wildcard 31. Hollandless draft. Yeah, this is my Hollandless draft, I believe. I could flip things around. Like, I guess in theory, I could go Isak and probably just go for like 4 defenders who play this week and play a 4-4-2. Don't really mind it. So close to 100 likes. Yeah, that would actually be nice. Send me over the line, guys. Which 2 attackers to get for the next 2 game weeks? I mean, generally speaking, I think Bournemouth mids are strong. Holland is really strong for the 2 game weeks. I wouldn't really quite recommend Foden or Marmoush. So yeah, I think honestly though, like the outcome from today, as I've been saying, is if Marmoush starts and Holland starts, I think it's very unlikely that Foden or KDB start. Especially since we are continuing to expect, generally speaking, that like City is playing with 2 wingers, right? Like with 2 very kind of, you know, you're a classic dribbly kid. Marmoush isn't a winger. I mean, yeah, that's true. But neither is Foden, for example. Marmoush can play out wide. I think that's been mentioned multiple times, but it's more likely right now. I think we're going to see Doku and Savio, right? Because that's like both of them are fit. Marmoush captain, I don't think so, not at all. Holland should be starting. I don't think there's any worry about that. So I would never touch Marmoush captain. If I was wildcarding, would I make sure Holland was in it? Well, if I knew he was going to start, then yeah, I would do that. Fran, I'm starting to get worried. You just transferred in Ortega and you can't find anything on the internet that supports Ederson being injured. Yeah, I don't know. I just know that apparently he's not in the Brazilian national team squad, is what I've written or what I've read. Holland pinning the Newcastle center backs and Marmoush running behind works so well. Probably the best that they looked all season. Fair. Even if Holland ruins the rest of the wild card, it's hard to say that someone whose captaincy materials. What was my live rank this season? This last season? I don't know, probably like top 1,000. Something like that. Savio starts. We're getting more leaks. Who's just given that leak, guys? Lazy FPL? I don't say anything from Lazy. Is it Main Road, maybe? Who said Savio starts? Tony says? Let me have a look at Tony. Okay. Tony's. Oh, yep. Tony said Savio starts. Nice. So that probably means Savio out wide. I think Doku's going to play. So honestly, my guess is Foden doesn't start. FPL Tony. Yeah, I think Foden probably doesn't start. Who said no Foden? Is that confirmed now? I can't see anything. Savio starts. Tony says Foden doesn't start. Gibbs White or Langa, I'd probably go get Gibbs White. Bowen or Savio, I'd probably go Savio actually at this point. Not confirmed. Foden likely benched. Yeah, I think Foden is likely benched, as I said, just structurally speaking. If you're going to play 2 wingers, then, and Silva plays, Jack Harrison starts. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure he will start, but then what? Hey, Fran. Hey, Ken. Start one, Castagna, Mikolenko, definitely Mikolenko. Mikolenko's just much better clean sheet odds this week, and obviously, like, their attacking forays just aren't great, right? Munak, taking a -12. Do I take an extra minus for Neto -16? Don't take a -16 for Neto, please. Have you considered a wild card? Minus 16 is pretty crazy, if I'm honest. Like, you could consider a wild card that can kind of support, you know, having a good team for 31, maybe even a bench boost with 32, something like that. But yeah, I would not take a -4 for if we're saying Pedro Neto versus Arsenal. No, I wouldn't take a -4 for that. Salah, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Pickford, Robinson, Colwell, Aina, Housen, Mbumo, Kluivert, Gibbs White, Kudus, Strand Larson, Holland. Nice team. What are you planning to do with Trent? I guess, Salah, is there a plan to use the money there? Is Foden playing striker instead of I think Holland starts, but I don't know. It's not really been confirmed actually. I'm just gonna have to think Holland starts, guys. There's no way I'm gonna. Rico starts. Is that true? Okay. So Nunez bench, right? Holland starts. Who said that? Oh, I'm stressed. Stressed, guys. What's going on? Did Foden say something? No, Foden retweeted Savio starts. How many minutes do we have left? 1 minute, 15 seconds. Anish, what would Kwanzaa be a good replacement for Trent? I mean, it's literally all they have. But the thing is, you don't really want Kwanzaa versus Everton or Kwanzaa versus Fulham away. I just don't think it really matters. Foden benched apparently. I think that's pretty off. Ben Krellin said Holland has blanked. What? I'm so lost. Foden KDB benched. That's pretty likely if Holland and Marmoush play. Well, that's it, guys. Honestly, you guys have to make your moves. Don't wait for leaks now. Just make moves. Trust yourself, etc., etc. The news that we have is Marmoush starts. Savio starts. I would think Holland starts. I don't think Foden's playing, so Foden's probably a bad pun, etc., etc. Wood or Kluivert captain? I'd go Kluivert myself. See team news FPL. I don't have time to do that over the next 25 seconds, so I'm confirmed Holland, Doku, Guardiola. Okay. Look, I have to be honest. Like, I made my Holland Guardiola moves last night. Like, I didn't think that they would be in trouble. So yeah, when I make moves, I always think, what would Fran do? Yeah, just what would Fran do? But don't do the captaincy stuff that Fran does, you know, when he's on drugs and stuff. All right, so that's it for my team. Team's looking good, right? Holland cap, everything fine. Good auto sub. I'll take it. All right, guys. Thank you. Best Foden replacement, Bruno. That's it, guys. That's the deadline. We're done here. Nah, generally, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Thank you guys so much for watching the stream. Please like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff as usual. Hope to see you guys next week. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the football games. It's nice to have lots of games in a row at 3 p.m. as opposed to like a pretty dry, I guess, like 1:30 game. So that's nice. You can't like because you love. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. Good luck to all the Greaves owners. Nah, not really. We want strong bench depth to prevail, right? Doesn't matter that I had a 40-point bench 1 week with strong bench depth. It's all about when they need to come clutch. Like Castagna, honestly, bro, I need you to cook a meal somehow. This Belgian lad. But yeah, all right. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys soon. Have a wonderful weekend, and hopefully we get some green arrows for once.